All right. I have no idea if this is working. Everything got messed up, everybody. I hope I still have some people out there. Oh, man. Problems, technical problems tonight. So, who's out there? Let me know. Is this coming through? Is this on a totally different page? I have no idea. Hit me up on the comments and let me know what's going on. I tried to reinitiate the streaming and it messed up the broadcast. So, all right. Everybody's back. I apologize, guys. Don't know what happened, but we'll try and get it sorted out. Sophia's here, Sentinel's here, Ian's here, and it's on a new page. So I don't know how to go to the old one. Yeah, we're back live here. Kind of never had this happen before, so I don't. So what happened is they set up the broadcast page for me with everything. So it's let me know if this is working okay. Hello, Guitar Tricks. Ashley, welcome. So I'm going to just try and keep going and hopefully people find it. All right, back now. Cool. Okay. We were talking about the metronome. I don't know when exactly it cut out, but we were talking about the metronome. And we've got a metronome on the toolkit version or the toolbox page on Guitar Tricks. Excellent. Okay. Good. Hey, Ozman. Right on. So we lost a bunch of viewers. Hopefully they can find it once the other one kind of quit on this. So we're talking about how to get a practice routine going and how to effectively practice. And I've got some general tips that I'm going through. Okay. Thanks for your comments, everybody. And let me know that it seems to be working now. We'll have to try and edit and stitch this together after the fact, but I appreciate you sticking with me on this. The technical problems. So what I was getting to next after the metronome, of which, you can download on your phone, always try to practice with a metronome. It keeps you honest with your timing and your smoothness too. Okay. So the next point here is memorize everything you're learning. Really commit to trying to to memorize. ISMKA melts. Do I have to do physical exercises before every practice session? Just some general warm-ups. I'll get to that in a second. But, some people like to, warm up the fingers, warm up the hands. I've heard of people running hot water on the hands to warm them up a little bit, stretch them out a little bit. That's never a bad thing to do. And then just any kind of sort of warm-ups just to get loose on the guitar, I think is a great thing to do. Okay. But I'll get to that in a bit. Just back to memorization. Okay. Try to, at first when you're learning something, whether it be a scale or a song, maybe a riff or a chord progression, you're sort of looking at a transcription maybe, or you're watching a video, but really try to memorize it as quickly as you can. Everything you want to be able to do on the guitar, you want to memorize quickly. And, try to get it under your fingers and try not to rely on having to look at something to play something. Okay. Because you're just going to, continue to, accumulate all of that memorization, all that knowledge, all that progress is just, you want to internalize it as quickly as you can. All right. We got Glenn, we got Peter. Excellent. And yes, of course, Ozman brings up a great point. Doesn't usually use a metronome, but uses jam tracks. Okay. So yes, absolutely play along with, whether it's a drum machine, jam tracks, backing tracks, whatever it is. Serbia is in the house. Bojan. Hopefully that's how you say your name. Welcome. I appreciate everybody joining after the technical glitches. Okay. Still on the first heading of the handout. You'll have to probably go. I don't know if you have to go back to another page. to grab this outline. I apologize for that. We had some technical difficulties. So the next thing I will say, just a general tip, connect the theory to the songs that you are learning, okay? It's one thing to, get the tabs for a song and work through the song. It's another thing to try to kind of understand what's going on in the song. Because, like as you're practicing and learning things on the guitar, you're learning some theory. If you can connect that theory to songs you're learning and what a guitar player is doing in a song and kind of understand the theory behind it, it's going to go a long way to really connecting the dots to when you are, sort of focused on learning any kind of theory kind of stuff. Okay. It's all about making connections to like, oh, I learned this song last week and I didn't realize that it's in this key, or it uses this scale, or that kind of thing. Really important. Okay. Be flexible, but stay committed. Okay. We all, we're learning guitar as adults. We have lots of responsibilities. There's lots of things going on. So just do the best you can every week to have a consistent practice routine. But sometimes you're not going to get to it. Okay. And that's okay. You can be flexible, but just try to stay committed to it. Try to get back to it as quickly as you can. And the final tip here in the general category, just a general thing to think about, just assess your progress every couple of weeks and adjust your practice routine based on, where you're sort of excelling and where things are as far as what you need more work on. You may want to rebalance what you're working on. Okay. And I'll talk a little bit more as we get into more detail here about it. Okay, so my next subheading in my handout, which I had the link to possibly on another page. I don't know if it's underneath here, but if not, it might be on another page for the video that got messed up. Categories of study. So there's sort of three, well, the first couple subheadings here are sort of go hand in hand. Actually, all of this goes hand in hand. But one of the first things that you need to really focus on, particularly if you're just new to the instrument, okay, if you're just new to playing guitar, there's no way around it. You have to just work on general mobility, general technique, getting those fingers acclimated to the fretboard, getting comfortable with the pick, and just getting on the instrument and getting some mobility, okay? Now, beyond that, you're always going to be refining and working on your technique and the basic mechanics, and then adding in all sorts of different sort of specific techniques, whether it's, there's all sorts of expressive things that we can do on the guitar. There's hammer-ons, there's pull-offs, there's vibrato, there's bending. All these things require just some attention and just general drilling to get under your fingers. So that's what I'm talking about with sort of technique exercises, building that muscle memory. Exactly. Okay. Areas of difficulty. So this is the key on sort of how to practice the things that you're having trouble with. Okay. And you've heard me talk about, if you've been to these sessions before, you've heard me talk about this lots. Okay. So here is the tried and true method on how to effectively practice through something you're having trouble with, okay? It's identify that area of difficulty, okay? It could be a chord change. It could be a picking thing. It could be a strum, okay? It could be a lick. It could be a riff. Whatever it is, if it's sort of tripping you up, that's the first flag that, okay, I need to take this little chunk of what's tripping me up, pull it out, put it into my practice routine, and how do I practice it? And the answer is that you have to isolate it, like what we just talked about, slow it down, and lots of repetition of you playing it correctly, okay? Now, in order for you to work it up to speed and work some smoothness and really conquer this thing that's holding you back, you have to figure out how to play it correctly, and that might require you to slow it way down, okay? So this is the recipe for anything, and I still use this to this day. If I'm going to teach a song tutorial on guitar tricks, and there might be a solo where there are some licks that I cannot play up to speed, I cannot get. But I don't panic, because I know that if I just isolate it, slow it down, and put in the time, repetition, over and over and over and over, okay? I'm going to work that muscle memory in, and the more that you do that, it burns the resistance that you feel in your muscles. It burns all that away, and it gets more and more fluid as you do it, okay? This goes for absolutely anything on the guitar, okay? Yes, sweep picking, practice it slowly at first. You can't immediately start doing that. You've got to practice the technique nice and slow, but correctly, okay? Get it to where you can play it correctly. And if you try going a little bit faster and you start to stumble on it, that's a red flag. You got to slow it down from there. Slow it down. So what you're doing is you're working below this threshold where that's where you trip up on whatever it is you're working on. Okay, this is where it's not fluid. It's not, I keep tripping up on it, whatever. Find that tempo, that speed, just below that where you can do it. Okay, the key is, okay, I'm executing this properly, but it might be quite a bit slower than the actual tempo of what you're going for. Okay, but the practice has to happen down here, and it has to be the correct thing that you're doing. And then with the repetition, it starts to go like this, right? And what you'll find is that the threshold where it falls apart for you starts to get pushed up like this. And sooner or later, you're going to end up at the tempo, the end goal tempo that you want to be at. Okay? There you go. So always be doing this. And some days it might, your threshold might be down here again. That just means you got to work down here a little bit more and keep repetition, repetition, repetition. Make sure you're doing it correctly, and keep, with all that repetition, you're pushing that tempo up and up. Okay? Goes for absolutely anything on the guitar. Okay? Cool. I will speak to, I think there was a question, Jim, about memorizing note names on the fretboard. Always a great idea. Absolutely. I would throw that in there. It's never a bad thing to know where the notes are. Okay? I'm just talking more generally right now, just practice routines. Okay? So that's areas of difficulty. What is your suggestion for practicing chord changes? I will show you, right? It's actually this methodology. Okay? So, for example, if I'm practicing A minor to F is a tough one, right? And how you know it's a tough one is that you're doing something like this. Do you see how that chord change interrupted my timing? It interrupted the tempo, and it took me a second to get my fingers on it, okay? The more effective way to practice this is to slow it down so that you're giving your fingers enough time to move to that new chord. So it's much better to do something like this. Okay, over and over and over again. The more that you're keeping nice, consistent timing, that resistance and all of that that's holding you up to kind of take time to go from one thing to the other, that's what you want to practice. And even before that, just something specific here for chord changes. You don't even need to add in the timing element yet. You can take a couple minutes and just literally go watch your fingers. Okay, back and forth, and just try to do this a bunch of times. That's going to help you. Okay, every once in a while, check each note in the chord to make sure that your fingers, everything's nice and clean. If it's not like this, getting that, you have to curl it. You have to adjust your fingers so that everything's nice and clean. Okay, You can do that for a few minutes, then add in the strum, nice and slow, and go for like 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, right? Just on that one chord change. You do that for a week, you're going to find that it gets quicker. You can do that quicker, and you're still keeping the smoothness. Okay. Charlie Boy, speed. Is it better work on standard patterns or find a good challenging solo and work it up to speed? I say all of the above. Both of those are great things to work on. Okay. Scales, absolutely. Scale sequences, even better, because they're a little more musical and they're a little more like solos, really. What I mean by sequences, I've talked about this before, but just really quickly, instead of just running up and down a scale, which in itself is a good thing to do. Okay, say like that. A sequence, I might do it in a group of 3, which would sound like this. Okay. See what I'm doing there? I'm going in groups of 3. So I'm playing 3 notes from the scale, and then I go back 1, play another 3 notes, go back 1. Just in an example. That's an example of a sequence. Okay, so you're making it a little more challenging picking wise, and you're also doing something a little more musical, right? You speed that up, it becomes a little more like a lick, a little more like a solo, right? Okay, so there's that. That's all great stuff to practice and work on and work up your speed. But solos too. And even if they're not so challenging, but even if it's a solo that's relatively easy, it's well worth working on it and working it up. And even if you have the mobility and can play the notes, start focusing on other things. Work on your dynamics in that solo. Work on your smoothness. Think about the bending. Is my bending in tune? There's lots of other details that you can switch your focus to on practicing that would be really effective. Just isolate that one little thing that you're looking at. I'm just paying attention to how smooth is the timing on this one lick, right? Versus are my fingers in the right spot? Well, you've already got it in the right spot, but you know what I mean? So definitely helpful to do something like that. Peter has a question. I fail to see how using the thumb over the top frees up other fingers, Hendrix trills, etc. Can you talk about this a little bit? Yeah. So this is kind of off topic, but I'm happy to talk about it. It's really the way Hendrix would do a bar chord. Like if we do a bar chord here, G major, right? I don't have any free fingers to do embellishments, really, right? And what Hendrix would do would fret the top part of the chord and then wrap his finger around, or his thumb, sorry, to get the root. And then you've got 3 fingers up top. And then now you've got your pinky. I'm not much of a thumb player, so it's hard for me to do, but he was really good at that, right? But right? That kind of stuff, okay? And I would do that kind of embellishment without just having the root note on there. But that's basically what that is a little bit, right? It's just you have a free finger to be able to, yeah, exactly. That's all it is. That's why he used the thumb, because he could get the root note in there, but he also had a free finger to be able to do embellishments. Okay, so that's the short answer on it. It's a great question, though. Okay, for a beginner, how often do you change your strings? There's no sort of set time limit on them. Just kind of when you feel like they're getting dirty or maybe they sound really dull. Okay. Kind of just depends on how often you play. And you know what? I don't tend to change that often. I just feel like when, sort of the dirt builds up and it sounds a little dull, that's when I'll change it. And it's nice to have some good fresh strings. You might even have tuning problems, actually, is another reason. If you find that your guitar is not staying in tune as well, it might be time for new strings as well. How do you solo over chord changes? That's a whole other session. We're talking about how to just general practice routine stuff tonight. So I'm happy to talk about that at maybe towards the end of the session or in an upcoming session. But that's a whole Miles. That's a whole big topic for sure. A minor, G major, F major, G major. That's an example I give you, Mike, Mr. Daniel. Okay, cool. Elias has a question. I found that practicing even a few minutes a day helps, and indeed it does. But if I'm going on vacation and can't bring the guitar, would a 2-week gap set you back any progress made? It might set you back, but I find that it'll be quicker to get to, it might feel like, oh, I'm a little bit rusty. But once you start playing, you'll be back to where you were. It'll be a quicker sort of ramp to back at the level that you were at. It just might take a few days of just dusting, getting the rust off. Okay. But it's not like it's not going to be a dire thing where you're starting back at ground zero again. Okay. Cool. Jeff, I like to see a solo on the fretboard as a series of patterns, easier to remember. Do you have any thoughts on this? Yeah, absolutely. Well, really, it's a series of melodies. It's a series of phrases, and if you can kind of relate it to the fretboard and however it makes sense to you is the right answer, because 20 different guitar players have 20 different ways of visualizing that kind of thing. Okay. So there's not one wrong or right or wrong way is how I would answer that question, Jeff. It's more just what makes sense to you for visualizing what's happening on the guitar, and you being able to, what I find helps is that if you're connecting everything you're learning to the fingers, but also the ear, that goes hand in hand. Okay, because when we start coming up with our own solos, improvising, that kind of thing, you want to sort of hear it in your head and have your fingers respond to that. Okay, so it's really important to sort of try and work to connect all of that as one unit. Okay, it's easier. That's like a general thing to talk about, and it's easier said than done, but that's sort of the general idea of it. Okay. When practicing scales, insert hammer-ons, bends, pull-offs to mix it up as well. Absolutely, 100%. I agree. Targeting the root note would be a great beginning. Yes, absolutely, 100%. We're talking about improvising now, Peter, I think. Yeah, targeting the root note. Yes. So, yeah, we're talking about how do you solo over changes. There you go. Great. Thank you, Peter, for jumping in on that. All right, cool. And Ian's got some great ideas there on vacation. And don't forget visualization and sort of thinking about playing the guitar. It actually it's helpful to do that. So when you don't have a guitar with you, but if you have some time to be able to sort of visualize what you've been practicing and think about stuff, it actually does help a little bit. Okay. All right. Can I do a segment on soloing with triplets? Possibly towards the end of this. I want to get through this breakdown on how to practice, just a general, get your practice routine together. Okay. So I've been talking about how to practice specific things, isolate, pull it out of whatever it is that you're doing, loop it, go slow, make sure you're playing it correctly, and just put in the time. Slow repetition over and over and over and over and over again. Okay. All right. And then there's the applying all this stuff by learning songs, by performing songs, by improvising, and with jamming with other musicians. Okay. So that's just how we apply all this stuff. So that's an important part of it too. Okay. Now, how do you structure this sort of thing? So what I say in this handout is the optimal thing to do is practice an hour a day if you can do it. Okay. I know that's not always necessary. Or Sorry, it's not always possible is what I meant to say. Possible. Okay. It's not always possible to do that, but that's what you should try and aim for. An hour a day, every day. Okay. Now, what you want to do, like I said in the outset, to be intentional and have goals. And at the beginning of a practice session, go, okay, here's an hour today. This is what I'm going to work on. Okay. Have that. And break your practice routine into chunks. So for example, you could break it into 3 20-minute chunks or 2 half-hour chunks, each with a different focus, each with this sort of modular approach that I'm about to talk about. Okay. And what you want to do is try and balance what I think are 4 important areas of study. Okay. So I've got this section called sample modules in the handout. Okay. So the first thing that you should always be doing, particularly if you've just started to play guitar or you've only been playing for a little while, work through a course, work through a program, some sort of guitar learning program. Okay. So for example, video courses like on Guitar Tricks, the core learning course, right? We have it for you. Work through it. It's progressive. Okay. It can be a book, right? Like, you get all sorts of learn to play guitar books, right? Or if there's a specific thing that you're trying to get better at, work through a book on that subject, okay? That always should be a focus of your practice routine, okay? Some sort of progressive course that you're working through. Okay, then there are 2 more things to think about, okay, out of these 4 areas of study. The 2 things that I now break up are single note playing and rhythm guitar playing. All right, so let's talk about single note playing for a second. All right, in the very beginning, if you're brand new to guitar, you just want to be able to make single notes cleanly on the guitar and get your fingers to do stuff like this. This is the spider finger warm up, right? But if you're new to guitar, this is what you got to do to start working on picking technique, working on fingers. The next step are scales, okay? Scales are great because we can work on timing, picking. We can learn the fretboard. We learn the sound of scales, okay? We learn the fretboard a little bit, all right? I would throw out there that your ultimate goal in the beginning is to memorize and know inside and out the major, the minor, pentatonic major, and pentatonic minor scales. Those 4 scales all over the neck are going to comprise most of what you'll ever play for single note stuff on the guitar. Okay, of course, there are tons of other scales that you can learn and work through, but if you understand the major scale inside and out, and beyond that, the minor scale and the pentatonic scales, all the other scales are just like little tweaks. Okay, just little different tweaks that make different sounds. That's all it is. So focus on the major scale first, get the minor scale under your fingers, all over the neck if you can, ideally, right? The 5 caged patterns. I've talked about caged in the past. We'll touch on that again probably in the future lots, but those are positional patterns that fill up the entire fretboard, okay? All right. It focuses on theory. You're listening to the sound of scales, connecting it to your ear. You're focused on picking technique, timing, work with the metronome, all that kind of stuff, okay? That's single note focus practice, okay? That bleeds into lead techniques, any of the lead guitar kind of stuff, bending, vibrato, hammer-ons, pull-offs, speed picking, sweep picking, all that kind of stuff, right? Single note type stuff, okay? And again, right? Yes, I do, Alan. Do I mean knowing all the patterns? I do. That ideally, we want to know all the patterns all the way across the neck, okay? All right? So areas of difficulty, right? What we talked about before. Anything that you're not super fluid on, something that you need to work on, isolate it, pull it out, right? Slow repetition over and over, get it into your fingers, right? Whether that's a scale pattern, whether that's a picking technique, whether it's a lick, whatever it is, okay? Now, same idea with the rhythm guitar, okay? Rhythm guitar is another area of focus. We're talking about nice, solid strumming, nice timing, nice feel. All of those things are wrapped up into this sort of subheading, right? Smooth strumming, smooth chord changes, quick chord changes in time, right? Again, it's the same method to practice this stuff, right? Go slow. If it's a new strumming pattern that's really weird, slow it down and make sure you got the downstrokes and upstrokes right, okay? And just burn it in. Don't even worry about chord changes if you're focused on a strum, okay? Give it 5-10 minutes, whatever it is, over and over. And if you do a little of that every day, you're going to get it, right? So, new chords, right? Like in this area of study, any new chords you encounter, try and figure out the theory behind them. Try to figure out different inversions, different voicings, right? Understand that, triads, all that kind of stuff. And then rhythm guitar, there's all sorts of things you can think about with muting, to practice muting, like anything from palm muting all the way to, how to strum the guitar, all the strings, and only have certain notes come out, right? Just like in the way you curl your fingers around the strings you're not using, right? This is all into muting and playing cleanly, okay? This is something that can be in that subheading. And then my fourth subheading for the 4 things you want to balance out, right? Remember we talked about always working through a course, single note focus, rhythm guitar focus, right? Chords and strumming, and then songs, okay? Always be working on songs. And in most cases, trying to learn songs and build a repertoire, okay? That is going to inform your practice for the rhythm guitar and the single note stuff that you want to practice, okay? There's going to be things in songs that you're trying to learn that like, man, that one part is really challenging for me. Isolate it, pull it out. If it's a chord thing, okay, it goes into my rhythm guitar practice. For the next 20 minutes, I'm going to practice that. Slowly, lots of repetition, work it out, okay? I always say, be working on 2 or 3 songs, probably no more than 3 songs at a time. Everybody's kind of different, right? A lot of people can be working on more than that. But I would encourage you to choose songs that you want to be able to play all the way through, okay? A lot of us fall into the trap of just learning like a riff or learning little parts of a song. And, in order to really, become better on the guitar, it's really great practice to just learn songs all the way through and be able to stitch different sections together, right? To be able to play with solid timing all the way through a song, okay? On Guitar Tricks, we have jam along videos. We have performance videos. I highly encourage you, if you're on Guitar Tricks, pick songs and play along with those performance tracks, those jam along tracks, because it's keeping your timing honest, right? And you're getting through a song all the way through. And that's really important, okay? To be able to kind of play a complete musical idea from start to finish. And there's a great sense of accomplishment once you start to do that, okay? Another tip, I mentioned it earlier, try to connect the theory to everything you're learning in the songs, okay? Try to figure out what key you're in and what chords fit in that key and when it goes outside the key. Well, that chord isn't in that key, but they must be stepping outside the key right there. Those kind of things make connections to all the other stuff you're learning, say in a course or a book, right? Like this theory stuff can be a little abstract. The songs is where it comes alive. So try and make those connections wherever you can, okay? Try to keep your repertoire fresh, right? Like, a song that maybe you worked on last year and now you've forgotten it, right? So try to, revisit songs that you mastered or songs that you played, 6 months ago, 3 months ago. Try to, keep a list And every once in a while, whether it's once a week, every 2 weeks, go through all the songs you know and keep them fresh, right? Replicate a live performance, come up with a song list, that kind of thing. Another cool thing to do is just record yourself playing songs if you have the ability. Well, even on the voice memo on the phone or whatever it is, listen back, try to be objective, listening back. How does it sound? Where can I improve? Right? Recording yourself really helps. Play with backing tracks. We already talked about that. That was in the comments there a little bit. The backing tracks are a great resource. We've got a jam station with backing tracks on Guitar Tricks. YouTube has got a million of them, okay? And Guitar Tricks has the ability, if you're on a desktop computer, to slow down the Guitar Tricks videos if you have to. Always great to slow down to play along with these things if it's just too fast, okay? It's always better to go slow, all right, when you're trying to get stuff under your fingers. Same thing with YouTube. YouTube has a speed function. So if you find videos on YouTube that you want to try to figure out what's going on with the guitar or just play along with a backing track or whatever it is, okay? In the settings menu on the bottom of the YouTube video, there's a speed control. It's valuable stuff, okay? And finally, no, it's kind of tough right now with the situation that we're all in, but just jamming with other musicians where you can. If you know any other musicians, if you've got friends that play guitar, even just, hanging out with them and watching what they do, but jamming, if you can, play with other people, okay? That really goes a long way. All right, so that's about it. It's just all about, that's sort of what I have for just a general things to think about, putting together a practice routine. Okay, just try to be consistent. Try to balance out the 4 areas of study, right? The going through a course, single note stuff, rhythm guitar stuff, and songs. Songs are really important. Always try to get in playing songs as soon as you can, okay? And of course, this is why. Yes, Ozman, exactly. It's the whole reason we want to play guitar, okay? So try to get to it as soon as you can. Suggestions to work through the plateau phases. Those are tough. What you'll, trust in, if you have these tools at your disposal where if you just are able to, grind it through, that these things work, right? If you stay on it, if you're consistent, if you stay lots of repetition and go through it, eventually you will break through and it's going to catch, right? A lot of times with guitar, we go like this. It feels like that, and then it'll jump up, and then it'll go straight and jump up. If that plateau feels like it's going too flat, then switch it up. Try to learn some different songs, right? Try to learn some songs that maybe you're not a fan of the style necessarily, but that can shake things up, right? Because the guitar, like style, beside itself, I'm always surprised. I'm a rock guy, right? But when I learn songs from other styles, I always learn something, right? And it's something that I didn't expect, right? Because when I got into it and started to do it, all of a sudden I enjoyed it, even though I'm not really into the style, but I enjoyed it because it's still guitar and it's something different. Okay, so I would say maybe something like that to shake it up, right? Or switch up your practice routines, like what I said at the beginning of the hour. It's more, reassess it. Like you might want to shift some focuses around and go, okay, maybe I should do this for a little while. Okay, so hopefully that helps. The last thing I will say is that, we've still got some time. We got a lot of questions. I'm going to go through it. I will go through it the best I can. But in the handout, I say consistency and I can't even say it. Consistency and repetition in your practice are the only way to improve your command of the instrument. It's important to spend time working on these things every day. Even if it's only 15 or 20 minutes per day, just make sure it's every day and that you're using the time effectively. So I've given you some tips on how to be effective with it, right? Now, when it feels like you're just It feels like you haven't been getting anywhere. It feels like it's not, all of a sudden, it's not really as fun, right? You got to shake it up. Just play. The most important thing is to have fun. So you got to find something else and just try to have fun with it and bring the fun back for a little while. Okay. You can leave stuff that you've just been working on over and over and over. Right. And if you get frustrated with it, just put it away for a while. Come back to it fresh. You might surprise yourself. Right. But go off and have fun. Always fun to just like try and improvise, try to play along with the backing track, no matter what your ability is, messing around and trying to come up with stuff that sounds cool. That's a big, important part of it. Okay. So don't lose sight of that as well. All right. Hopefully that you guys found that helpful. I'm going to go back in the comments here and just make sure that I haven't missed anything. Just give me a sec here. Can you do the same thing using the pinky finger by using the partial caged chords? Yeah, I think we were talking about that, getting back to that Hendrix thing with that's kind of what I was saying, was that, Hendrix liked to have that root note in there and then be able to have his pinky free to add melodies to the top of the chord, right? But, especially if you're playing with a band, you don't necessarily need to even worry about the root note of the chord. You can play those triads, those different chord shapes with a couple fingers and still have a finger free to kind of add stuff to it. Okay. Soloing with triplets, the Oz band. Oh my goodness, soloing with triplets. So what I will say about that, I mean, it's sort of a bigger discussion for phrasing, basically, Ozman, but you really have to be kind of on top of your subdivisions, like understand the timing subdivisions. So, you're kind of like, right? Like that's kind of like bringing triplets in, like when you've got a 1 and 2. You kind of go to that triple kind of thing, right? So it can be as simple as just, sort of running scales or licks and then just, practicing throwing the timing off of the lick or the phrase, the phrasing, and adapting it to a different subdivision, okay? Which you can turn one lick into tons of licks by just changing the rhythm of it. So that's what I would say with that, just as a really quick answer, okay? But yes, like sort of soloing, kind of maybe a soloing session, a phrasing session coming up. It's a good idea. Maybe we'll do that. Jim, I'm just starting lead guitar and I'm finding that thinking of the notes to be easier than learning the patterns, each their own. I think whatever, at first, whichever it is great. The important thing is that you're trying to connect it to the ear also. So if you can hear what's going on, like with those, if you're thinking of the notes and not necessarily the patterns, that's great. But it's really important to just make sure that it's connecting with your ear, so you'll be able to hear what each of those notes is doing, right? The pattern thing, it's, I'm not 100% sure, thinking of the notes, you need to know where the notes are, and you kind of need to know what the notes are in the scale that you're playing. So it seems like learning a pattern might be a little bit of a fast track to it. But then once we learn patterns, we want to figure out what the notes are in the patterns. So it's sort of all connected. Okay. So I think sort of an understanding of all of it is going to be the most desirable thing. How do you practice triads? Well, practice them for, in your practice routine by, just strumming through them, and go by, triads. So go through every set of 3 strings because the shapes are different, right? So for example, on the D, G, and B string, right? And let's think about major triads. Okay, how would I practice this? Well, the first thing I'll do is just pick one chord. Let's say an A major. Okay, and so here's one triad shape for A major on the D, G, and B string, just the second fret. Okay, you need to kind of look these up or know how these are constructed, right? So the next one is going to be 7th, 6th, 5th on the D, G, and B. Okay, and then the next one is 11, 9, and 10 on the D, G, and B, and then it repeats up at the 14th fret, right? So once you sort of figure out where those are, stay on one chord and just strum through it, right? Okay, that's just this string set. Those are different shapes on, let's say, the G, B, and E strings. You're going to want to learn those, right? And I'm only talking about minor or major chords right now, right? So next, what I might do is think 1, 4, 5. Those are all major chords in a key of A. All right, so what are those shapes if I go up and down the fretboard? 1, 4, 5. Here we go. D is the 4. Here's E. Now back to A. Okay. Now here's D. Here's E. Here's A. Here's D. Here's E. Now I've gone an octave, doing 1, 4, 5 of major triad shapes, okay, with the 1, 4, 5. So I would practice those up and down. Then I would do the minors, right? And I would do each string set to get under your fingers, okay? Elias, for someone still new, where's the best place to place the emphasis? Practicing chord changes, including the tougher ones like bar chords, or even it out with music theory such as scales, notes, etc. I think you need to find a balance with it, particularly in the beginning, okay? We want to develop the ability to play single notes, okay? They go hand in hand because eventually you're going to be playing chords and incorporating both skills, right? So particularly at the beginning, okay? Try to balance both of those. Really try to focus on getting your single note chops, you know, whether it's alternate picking, that kind of thing. Try to get nice and fluid and smooth in that, right? And then also keep working on your bar chords, keep working on your rhythm guitar strumming, that kind of thing. Hopefully that helps. Glenn B, I find it hard to figure out what to concentrate on, such as guitar fundamentals with Lisa on finger picking and strumming. You know what? Actually, it's just sort of the same thing that I said. You know, finger picking can come a little bit later. I know Lisa does, I think, a little bit of finger picking and fundamentals, but, you know, really, like what I said, try to balance single note picking with chords and strumming in the beginning, okay? And try to do all her, you know, sort of mini songs that she does every chapter and play through those songs. And, you know, those are great exercises to just keep progressing, okay? So just try to stick with her course. And then if there's certain things where you feel like that, you know, that particular chord change, for example, is always something I stumble over. That's the one that you want to pull out of, you know, working on Lisa's thing, and you pull it out and you come over and you put it into your rhythm guitar practice time, right? Whether that's 15 minutes out of your hour, 20 minutes, or whatever it is, okay? What about tremolo picking, playing triplets? Absolutely, sir. I aim for 15 minutes a day, often turns into 30 or 45-minute sessions. That's awesome. Good job, Sean. When working through the course type work, I find that going back, I always pick up stuff I may have missed the first time through. Great, Ian. That's awesome. And indeed, that's going to happen, especially with newer material. You're going to sort of grab onto, you know, some of it, maybe not all of it, right? So going back through it is always a great exercise. That's awesome. Alan, do you mean knowing all the patterns for the major, pentatonic, and diatonic? Yes, I think I answered that one already. The major, the minor, and pentatonic major and minor. Aim to know those patterns. Okay. How worthy are the modes to learn versus the basic scales? Learn the basic scales. Okay. The modes are just like little tweaks. That's all they are. If you know the major scale cold, okay, the idea of modes is pretty straightforward. Okay. You don't have to learn all the modes as separate scales. Okay. Because that's just way too many things to think about. Okay. I think of the modes as special, just little tweaks that you make to either the major or the minor scales. Okay. So if you know your major and minor scales inside and out, you can make a little tweak. You can move one, flat one note, sharp one note, whatever it is to make a mode. Okay. That makes way more sense to me, and it's way easier to kind of deal with. And we should do a session on modes one of these days. We might do that. Sophia, I just bought a digital piano so I can learn music theory a little bit better. Do you know a page like Guitar Tricks, but for piano? They actually did have a 30-day piano course. I'm not sure if they still have it, but the Guitar Tricks people put up a piano course. I don't know if it's still going. It was called 30-Day Piano, I believe. Other than that, I don't know of any others. Maybe somebody can chime in on that one, or maybe someone has. I'm just working through the comments here. All right. Modes are basic chords, just the progression changes. Yeah, well, modes are scales. You're fitting it to the progression, basically. It's a way to think of the scales and make changes to them to fit a certain progression that maybe doesn't fit in, a straight major or minor key. Cool. Elias, forgot to mention songs. How much time to devote learning to songs? The made easy ones in GT are great, but I find myself getting trapped there instead of learning more general stuff. You know what? If you ended up focusing more on songs, it's not a bad thing, I think, Elias. So you're all good. But yeah, I mean, just something to balance, right? How much time to devote to learning songs? Like I said, just try to work through a course. Try to work on your rhythm guitar, try to work on your single note stuff, and try to work on your songs, and just balance those 4 areas over the course of a week or even a month, whatever it is. But just try to keep a balance of them. Cool. We got a, what happened here? Still with it. Will the songs in method books work? Absolutely. Yes. Anything to, on Guitar Tricks, we focus on popular songs in all sorts of different styles. Depending on the book you have, you'll have different, songs. So it's a bonus if it's something that you're into and that you like. But absolutely, learn the songs in those, Dree. Thank you, Ian, for your kind words on the GT song tutorials. Excellent. Thanks for the kind words, Dree, on Guitar Tricks. Will Guitar Tricks be updating the looper? Yeah, I actually, it's been glitching recently, and it has something to do with the video decoding. Whatever Guitar Tricks uses for the video encoding, decoding, or whatever it is, something happened and the looper's not working as well. They are aware of it. Okay. They're aware of the looper problem. They're working towards a fix, but they're not sure whether that's going to be something quick or not. So they are aware of that. Hopefully we will update the looper because it's kind of glitchy. It doesn't work as well as it used to. So they are aware. Okay, excellent. Peter, personally, I practice the most things that give me the most troubles, and by the end, I just play songs to unload the frustration. You know what? There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, so it's a great recipe for just you got to get rid of that frustration somehow. So do whatever it takes to have fun on the guitar. Dree, acoustic versus electric guitar, doesn't matter. Okay, you can learn on acoustic, you can learn on electric, you can go back and forth. It's all about developing just general mobility to your fingers. Okay. All right. Thank you, Sophia. John Mayer is going to be performing on the Grammys. And by the way, Sophia, I don't know if you saw his TikTok where he sort of broke down Burning. What's the name of the song again? The Burning Room song. Anyway, he did a little mini lesson on TikTok. So check out his TikTok if I'm sure you're already on it. Cool. Jam tracks, Ozman. Excellent. All right, Ian. Yes, hopefully these were things to think about for, kind of zeroing in on a better, more effective practice routine. I just gave my thoughts on switching between acoustic and electric. I think it's great. And even if every guitar is going to feel different, and we want to just be able to expose the fingers and our general mobility to as many of those situations as possible. Okay, so absolutely. Cool. I'm going down the comments here and it just keeps jumping. Do you have an exercise idea for the Hendrix idea? Learn some Hendrix songs and then, pull out like one of the riffs and just isolate it and go slow with it and do it over and over. Okay. Even as something as simple as like, right, like this one. That's sort of a Hendrixy idea, right? So you just want to practice, even if you're just practicing this and trying to get that under your fingers, right? It's, yeah, this song is full of it. That kind of stuff, right? Yeah. Check out his songs and pull some of that stuff out and just make it into an exercise. Charlie Boy, tips on practicing pure technical stuff like vibrato, hammer-ons, pull-offs. Yeah, the tips are sort of the general idea is the same, right? Metronome, hammer-ons and pull-offs and vibrato. Actually, forget about metronome for that for a second. Go slow with this stuff, okay? Particularly with hammer-ons and pull-offs, trill exercises are great, okay? Okay, where you're just building some strength here, and go as slow as you need to get the technique under there, right? Because you're kind of pull off, you're kind of doing a little bit of a flick on the string, right? And you also want to work on the strength that you need. So work that pinky, right? Even if you have to stretch a little bit. Just a quick tip for vibrato, go slow and think of it like tiny little bends, right? Something like this. Notice my wrist. Okay, it's a flick of the wrist here, up and down. Okay, and you're bending that string just a little bit up and back down. Go slow at first. Okay, you want to build that muscle memory so that it's nice and smooth when you speed it up. But there's nothing wrong with going slow at first. So that's what I would say for that. Oh, Steven in Edmonton. Awesome, man. Thanks for rewatching. You're going to check it out and you're building a pedal board. Well, that's killer. Awesome, man. Paul's going through acoustic 1 and 2. The structured lessons automatically set my practice routine. When the track is finished, I'm afraid, or when that course is finished, you're afraid of no structure to practice. Did you cover his yet? Yeah, so I'm not 100% sure of what you're asking, but when the track is finished, I'm afraid of no structure to practice. You're just going to move on to a different style, maybe, in the style courses. And again, work through the stuff and any of his sort of things that he teaches you in any of those chapters, kind of wherever there's something that you feel like you can do better or there's something that you're stumbling over, that's going to set the tone of your structure for practice. So you're going to pull that out and just make that a focus. Okay. Hope that helps. All right, Mohammed, how much time it took take you to learn all the notes and to memorize the fretboard? Well, I am a work in progress. I know it fairly well, but it's not like you know, lightning fast. Okay, it's a process, and so just keep working towards it. Is all I can say. Okay, learn where the notes are on the fretboard. Right. Um, learn what the notes are in a scale, and try to identify them as you're running them, right? Running the scale patterns. Okay. One string at a time gets easier. That's a good tip. Excellent. Yeah, the comments get away on me a little bit. So I'm working through it. Scale practice really helps. Excellent. Don't worry about the time. What's the point? Is there a download for this week and what's the topic? I'm jumping in. There was a handout. I don't know if it's below the video or not. Hopefully you can find it. That we had a technical glitch. It might be on another page where it was on there. Rick Sticks, is there any value in learning intervals when doing scales or just note names? Oh, intervals are, I would even say, learn intervals as quickly as you can over the note names, even. I mean, it's important to know the note names, but we talk in intervals. Intervals are quick because you can apply it right away to any key. So yes, 1,000 plus 1,000 on learning your intervals, understanding the scales as intervals. Okay. Interval live stream. Thanks, Stephen. Excellent. Exercises are great practice from last week. Great. Excellent. Cool. The Android app needs an upgrade. I think they are aware of it. They're working towards it. Thanks for your feedback. We're trying our best to get it. Yeah, and also Peter brings up a good point. We've got lots of lessons on Facebook. If you're on the Guitar Tricks live videos page, they left all these up. We did that for the better part of the last year. We were on Facebook, and I have lots of videos on that kind of stuff. Dree, thanks for today's session. You're welcome. Thank you for hanging out. Excellent. Good night from Scotland. Big Yin, thank you. That's awesome. Wind Cries Mary. Yeah, if you have trouble playing that second, okay, that's what we got to work on really slow. You just maybe stay on one of these. You got to bar down on two notes at a time, right? Okay. And you got to curl that finger and still hammer it on. 2 frets up on the A string there. And just work on that a little bit. Okay. Because it's the speed and being able to move it up and down that you're going to go do next. But it always starts just with the basic thing you got to work on over and over. Oh, John's releasing a new album. Oh, interested to hear it. I'm sure my wife will have it when it's out. John Mayer, excellent. How do you know if you're talented at guitar? No idea. If you work at it, you can learn it. That's all I'll say. I'm working through acoustic 1 and 2, then rock 1 and 2. Once you incorporate the practice to your routine you've outlined, you can already do it. Okay, Paul, remember I talked about 4 focus areas, and just one of them is working through the course. But alongside that, take things out of the course and also take things out of songs you're learning and inform the other 2 headings, which are single note practice and rhythm guitar practice. And those are when you isolate problem areas and drill through slow with lots of repetition. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Costa Rica, Michael, excellent. Right on. Thanks for the kind words. Stephen, I'm with you. Back in the day, I wish I hadn't wasted so much time. Learning so much. Thank you, Guitar Tricks. Thank you, Russell. And Peter's got a good comment there. Ryan, good content. All right, Ryan, excellent. Thank you. You need a super chat in here. I have no idea how super chats work, so maybe we'll work towards that. Yeah, Stephen. No, absolutely. Yeah, no, I know where the notes are. It might take me a few minutes for some of that, sharps and flat, or a few seconds for a sharp or a flat. I don't know how quick I am with it, but yeah, learn your notes, learn your intervals. That's how you learn the fretboard. Susan, thanks for hanging out. We'll see you next Friday. Absolutely. Stephen, oh, the Hendrix breakdown. Cool. I'm having trouble playing two notes in the same time in the finger style. Do you have an exercise for this? Oh, yes. So something like this. Maybe it's okay. So just work on, if you have to play, it gets a little more involved if you're picking two notes, like if you're right, something like that. Yeah, all I can say, nothing specific on that, especially finger picking. Yeah, it's tough to get when you're first trying out, when you're first new to it, right? And particularly like hitting two different notes at the same time, right? All I can say is use the techniques that I've been talking about. Go really slow and make sure that you're doing correctly slow, and just do it over and over and over. It will come. It will come. It will loosen up. You will start to internalize it into the muscle memory. Okay. So hopefully that helps. All right. Listen, everybody, we're way over time, but I super appreciate everybody hanging out and revisiting. I don't know how this is going to look on YouTube. Might have to stitch this with the first part. I don't know if it's on the same page. I don't know how all this works. So we might stitch it together into one lesson here so that it's up for posterity properly. But I appreciate you all coming back over after the technical glitch. All right. Thanks, everybody. Ian, I love your comment. Thank you. Appreciate the tenacity in the face of technical difficulties. Right on, everybody. Rick Sticks, Eddie, Stephen, thanks for all the comments and participation. It was awesome. Take care, everyone. We'll see you on Friday. See you in a week. Take care. All right.